Soon my family and I were caught in the revolving door of therapist offices, hospitals, and psychiatric institutions, with first one diagnosis and then another applied to me as I grabbed at anything I could find to try to control the spinning in my head. I carried back and forth from straight A's to straight F's, from awards for writing to suspensions for fighting, from starving myself half to death to cutting myself up to drinking my weight in stolen booze. The mood swings of bipolar carried me from elated highs to suffocating lows, from manic weeks awake to weeks on end laid flat on the floor of my bedroom, with blankets thrown over the windows to block out the light. I went from staring out the window of the psychiatrist's office while he scribbled on his yellow notepad, to laughing and screaming at all-night parties, to bouncing around on, I'm not kidding, the cheerleading squad, to sobbing on the bathroom floor at school. My parents were frantic. My teachers were baffled. My friends laughed at my never-ending jokes and tried not to look as I grew steadily skinnier, more scarred up, and more empty-eyed. Gradually, this was the conclusion all was true. I was one screwed-up kid. I had no better explanation than that myself. I did my best to hide the fact that it was getting worse. My parents did their best to get me help. But by the time I was 20, I'd been hospitalized half a dozen times and done a year-long stint in a locked psychiatric facility. And at 21, in an extreme manic state, I wound up with 42 stitches in my arm. I wasn't trying to kill myself. I didn't want to be dead. I was just trying to stop the noise in my head. It didn't work. But the long purple scar made me painfully aware of just how far I had wandered from the real world, the regular world, the world where normal people lived. And I wanted to be back there, normal and healthy and happy, more than I can even begin to describe. I wanted desperately to finally be one of you. I wanted to be better. I wanted not to be sick. So I kept pretending I wasn't sick. Full onset hit when I was 22 and improbably living the kind of life I'd always dreamed I could. I had a husband, a book deal, a house. After the incident cutting my arm, I'd gone into remission, and to my amazement and that of everyone around me, I had put a little bit of distance between myself and the sick girl I'd always been. I thought I'd proven, mostly to myself, that if I could just try hard enough, if I just faked it well enough, no one would ever find out what kind of chaos was roiling around inside me. I was certain that I built the kind of life that would keep what I called my crazies at bay. The husband would keep them away, or the house, or the book, the work that had always disguised it before, the work I did night and day when I was manic, and when I was depressed, I couldn't even conceive of it. But I didn't tell anyone that. I just put on the happiest, sanest, most put-together look I could, and kept charging ahead, trying to outrun the demons that had been chasing me for my entire life. And that's when all hell broke loose. The break, July 1997, 9 a.m. One hot sunny morning, 3 months after I first heard the term bipolar disorder from Dr. Beadle, I am suddenly floridly mad. Just like that, mad. I'm going along, minding my own business, when I find that I've gone completely over the edge. Why today? Who cares? I'm not thinking a bit about that because, as I said, I've gone insane and couldn't possibly care less why. You don't wonder when you've just lost it. How? You were going about your morning and now you are mad and you can't remember what it was like before. You will never really remember. Your life snaps in half right there. Sure, I'd been crazy before. I'd been crazy all along. But this was different. This was nuts. I was entirely unaware that something had snapped and never would be put back together. Here I was, it was Tuesday, and now I was quite mad. Not mad as in moody, mad as in under the impression that I am God. I'm driving through the city, I am speeding. It seems that I have had a good deal to drink to calm my nerves, for I am just a touch nervous. I woke up this morning and things were a little off. I went to the kitchen for a cup of coffee and stopped in the doorway. Glass covered every surface and the floor. I vaguely remembered throwing the coffee pot at my husband's head. No coffee. There was blood on the floor. I checked my feet, which were covered with shallow cuts that were more or less painless. I wondered if they were painless or if I was numb. It occurred to me that I needed to leave immediately, and so I went upstairs to collect my purse and shoes. I made it as far as the car when I noticed that I wasn't wearing any clothes. Oh, for goodness sakes, I thought to myself, and went back into the house, shaking my head. I put on my blue-flowered sundress and then realized I probably ought to shower, so I took a shower and then stepped out soaking wet with my dress clinging to me, and then there was a little fold within time, and now I'm driving very fast. I am downtown. I'm speeding through a parking lot, honking at nothing. I run inside a building and find out my husband's job. I kiss everyone hello despite their surprise, and I babble excitedly. My husband calls the doctor and kindly escorts me back to my car and sends me on my merry way. And it's important that I put on lots of lipstick. It's always good to look nice for an appointment with the shrink. It makes one look much more sane. And I'm pacing in his office. Please sit down, Marya, really. Would you sit down? Have you taken your meds? Are you suicidal? Have you been drinking? Does your husband know where you are? Did you drive here? No, you certainly cannot leave. Inexplicably, I'm in the car again. From out of nowhere, my husband is here and is driving, and I'm bouncing up and down in my seat. We're going on an adventure. We're going to California or New York. Let's move to New York. I find a bottle of vodka under the seat and drink the better part of it because I'm a little agitated and probably shouldn't be seen like this. It's embarrassing. And now we're at a hospital. Why are we at a hospital? My husband looks worried. I am sitting on a gurney and they are taking my blood, which apparently I don't care for because I back them away and shriek that they are invading my privacy and this is still America and they can't just do whatever they want. Then for no reason that I can see, I'm being wheeled along the corridor. I say, I can walk perfectly well and hop up and wheel the chair myself, though the person in the blue pajamas declines to get in. And they unlock a large door and we are in a safe place. And they take my shoes. I sit here in the hospital room painted the shade of pink that is supposed to make people calm. I examine, enchanted, my feet in their hospital footies, while someone speaks to me in soft tones and says that I'm psychotic, but it's going to be all right. I put on my hat, unperturbed, and ask for some crayons. When the doctor told me I had bipolar, I might have sat up and listened, but no such luck. When the doctor said bipolar, I said, no thanks. Who wants to believe that they have an illness from which they will never recover? Not me. Not anyone I know. It's a really tough feeling being told that you're sick and aren't ever going to get better. You don't know right then that it can be better, that you can manage, and that you can heal. I, for one, just thought the doctor had handed me a guarantee that I was well on my way to being a bad lady, a crazy lady, one of that gray mass of humanity, the mentally ill. So I ignored him. He said I had to change everything I was doing. I changed nothing. He told me I had to stop drinking like a fish, working myself to death, sleeping not at all. I thought those were the things that were helping, the only things that were helping, and he was telling me to stop. Forget it. So I took his pills when I felt like it, when I remembered, and I kept living the way that I had been. I pulled it together again, just like I always had, and it was just like it always was. I went from teaching Shakespeare to huddling in my laundry basket, from holding court and martini parties to lying in bed as one day bled into the next, and I still couldn't force myself up. The dissonance between what I seemed to be and what I was, between what I wanted so badly and what I actually got, became excruciating. My book was 2 years late. I had blown through a mind-boggling amount of money and wasn't entirely sure on what. I found myself in strange parts of the city conspiring with the bums, and then in Mexico, without knowing how I got there. And soon I snapped again, going into another psychotic episode that sent me careening across the country in my car, hiding in cheap motels, lost in the desert, delusional and disoriented, looking exactly like the crazy lady I'd always feared I'd become. When my family found me suicidal, insane, they hardly knew what to do. They did what they could. They did what I had always been terrified that someone would. They got rid of the last vestiges of the normal life I clung to, my job, my house, my maxed out credit cards, my precious booze, and took me to stay in my mother's house, where I went plummeting into a depression so severe I thought I'd never come out. I hit bottom really hard. And it was at the bottom that I did what I finally needed to do. I gave in. I don't mean for a minute that I gave up. I mean I surrendered. I finally understood that the way out was through. And as I set out on my journey through that confusion, I began to understand that there was hope. I started taking my meds. I stopped drinking, and I started to do the things the doctors had always said I would need to do if I wanted to survive. And I wanted to survive. Wanted it so badly I could taste it. There is nothing like fear to motivate you, and I was scared. And gradually, I began to get the hang of this life thing. I began to understand what living could mean. I went to the doctor for my psych checkup the other day, and as I was checking in, I looked down at the desk and saw a sign with my health network's new slogan. I looked around and realized the slogan was everywhere, on posters, on pamphlets, and the clutter on every desk, among the Zyprex and notepads and the Prozac pens. The slogan is, what do you live for? In another kind of healthcare office, that would be kind of cute. But it seems a little existentialist for a mental health clinic. Too many patients would look at it and think, you know, I don't know. And we don't always know. Sometimes we have to take on faith that there is a reason. We need to think hard about what more we want to achieve because we can get there. A miracle cure would be awesome. But right now, we don't have that. We don't need a cure right now. We can live enormously fulfilling lives. We contain the seed of that fulfillment, the spark of potential, right here, in our hearts and in our minds. They aren't broken. We aren't broken. We're healing every day. And for me, it is a matter of living today, taking it day by day, because each day is precious. It becomes precious when I accept that this is the road I get to walk. Would I sometimes rather walk a different road? I'm not sure. This is my road, and it has its beauty and its wonder and its joy. It has its pain and its struggle as well, but the pain and struggle are not just part of having a mental disorder, they're part of having a life. All of us come face to face with challenges as we go. This is my challenge. I accept that, and that acceptance affords me peace. And what I have now, it isn't perfect. I have episodes. It's been a while, but I have them. I could again. I have bad days. Sometimes I have a crummy year. My idea of normal might not be the norm. My idea of healthy might not be the same as someone who's never lived with a disorder of the brain. But this is the mind that I have. It's the life that I live. I define it, not anyone else. It's hard-won. It's mine. And I say it's pretty good. I have a choice about whether I manage my health or let it manage me. I've tried it both ways. I can always go back to the way that it was, but I choose to live this way instead. I choose to be vigilant. I know that another episode may be around the corner, and I know I have to do what I can to keep it there. I also know the nature of this beast. I know it may come, and I'll have to do what I can to get through it with minimal fallout. The dream I had at one time that one day this thing would up and disappear is a dream that won't come true. But I have other bigger dreams for myself. And acceptance makes it possible for me to reach those bigger dreams. Defining and reaching for our dreams depends on knowing who we are and what we want for ourselves. It is all too easy to believe that mental illness defines who we are and what we are capable of. We sometimes assume our lives will and must be limited